Hello and welcome to Midlands at Home. On this week's show, we're going to be talking property auctions and ways of selling your home, looking at how West Midlands house prices have supposedly hit an all-time high, plus discussing a new Star Trek-style elevator for your home that could replace stairlifts. Interesting. Right, my guest today is Chris Edwards from Auction House Birmingham and Black Country. Chris, welcome to Big Centre.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Tell
us a little bit about your background in property.
I've been in the property market in the Walsall area for about 30 years, straight from university.
Yeah.
Joined a small independent practice, then became part of a national chain where I was a director briefly, but wanted to do my own thing. So 24 years ago now,
Right.
I started my own practice based in Walsall.
Have you always been fascinated in property?
Yes, I think so. I don't come from a family background of property, but it was something that inspired me. I went to university to study it, and then the rest is history, as they say.
And as well as obviously doing properties, you are an auctioneer as well.
Yes, we are. I mean, we have an estate agency practice and lettings practice, but I actually specialise in the auction market, and we've taken the franchise for Auction House Birmingham Black Country,
Yeah.
and we operate in this area.
And you are the man with the hammer. You're the boss on that stage.
I'm the boss, allegedly.
Yeah.
The punters, as I call them, try to pull me backwards and forwards, but I try and hold my own as long as I can.
Now, we had the pleasure of seeing one of your auctions. It was fantastic, I have to say. You were very impressive. You talk very, very fast, but is this something that you learn on the job? How do you spot with a room full of people nodding their heads?
I think my mother would say that I have always spoken very quickly.
Oh, really?
I have to really rein it back when I'm talking generally. So the auction is great foil for me. In terms of spotting, I always ask the audience at the beginning of the auction, when they first want to bid, to wave their card at me or make themselves known to me fairly obviously.
Is that a card with a number on it?
Yeah, a
so
card with a number or a
Yeah.
catalogue. I mean, there are 200 to 300 people in the room sometimes.
That's it.
Once they've bid once, I will always go back to them.
Right.
So it's a case then of going back to a previous bidder and then keeping your eye on the room for additional people coming in new. But again, hopefully they do raise their arm quite strenuously,
Yeah.
so I can pick them up.
Yeah, give you a little woo.
But then literally it is a nod of a head,
Yeah.
or in one case we had somebody having a sip of beer.
Oh, really? At the bar?
And that was his bid.
Yeah.
So once you've got what they're doing, it's relatively straightforward.
And I suppose, with the job starting out and now, I imagine you just get quicker and quicker over time.
Yeah, I think you have to have an element of speed, particularly when there's 2 or 3 bidders and the bids are coming in strong. But you also have to make yourself clear.
Yeah.
Obviously, people are spending money. They need to know what the bid is you're asking for. You can't be so quick that they get the wrong idea of what they think they're bidding.
Yeah.
So it's the clarity of the voice, which I hope I manage most of the time, as well as the speed that's important.
Well, yeah, well, I think it's the clarity of your voice, but your energy as well, because I think you pitch it just right. Your energy is fantastic. And what I noticed with the auction is that you go up in small price increments as well. You don't necessarily just do going up by £1,000 or that. You really play the room beautifully.
I think that's the art of a good auctioneer. We like to make it a bit of theatre, but at the end of the day, our aim is to achieve the best possible price for our vendor.
Yeah.
So we start off in fairly large increments, 10,000s, 5,000s, then we come down to 500s. The 250s is something that a lot of auctioneers shy away from because it takes too long.
Yes.
I pride myself in coming down to 250s and then hopefully getting another £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 in 250,000 increments, which, as I say, my job is to get the best price for my client.
And that's exactly what you do. And I have to say, we saw some fantastic reactions. In fact, take a little look at this. This is Chris in action with a brilliant result. Now, remember John, who we caught up with earlier? It's now time to sell his property. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him.
£100,000 somewhere? £100,000? 90 then? £90,000 anywhere? 90, thank you. £90,000 I have at the back of the room on the left.
It's a nervous time as a seller, but John is hoping that he at least meets the reserve price, as he'd struggled to sell his home on the open market. That's the beauty of selling at auction. It's quick, efficient, and can get you the best possible price.
£110,000 we bid, 110,000, we've 115. £110,000 I'm bid then for the first time at £110,000 then.
I must admit, I'm nervous for him, but it's looking good.
In the room, £115,000 on bid, 120. You're out at the back on the left, 120. 117 and a half, 117 and a half, £120,000 we're in business, £120,000 then for the first time at 120. I'll take one off you at the back on the left, 120 on bid. At £120,000 then for the first time, then 120. Second time at £120,000. Third and final time at £120,000. Are we all done? Lady in the middle, congratulations. Oh, that's a nice reaction.
Meet the new owner of
Well
your
done.
home, John. The girls have done it. Great result all round, with a guide price of £110,000 and achieving 120. Absolutely brilliant reaction. I loved the girls' faces. And what were the chances that they were sat behind the guy that was selling his home?
Very unusual. We often have a situation where you've got two bidders on the same property sat next to each other.
Oh, really?
Which again is quite confusing because they're not quite sure whether
Hold
they've
on a
got it
minute,
or not, and they bid against themselves, which is quite amusing. But seller and buyer together is fairly rare.
Yeah, very, very rare.
fairly rare.
Brilliant reaction.
Yeah.
What sort of clients do you tend to find that put their homes to
There's the
auction?
complete mix. I think there's a myth that auctions are a last resort. You've tried every other avenue and you can't sell your property, and therefore an auction is you give it away.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Auctions are a very good method of selling. We have a conversion rate of 93% of what we put through the room we sell,
Brilliant.
at an average of 10 to 20% above the guide. So auctions can be a first resort.
Yeah.
And we're uniquely placed in the area that when we go in, we can say to the vendor, this should be auction or this should be private treaty, which is the standard, put the board in the garden,
Yes.
put it in the newspaper. We also have a lot of corporate clients, repossessed properties, unfortunately, matrimonial cases sometimes. And then you've got your structural problems, distress sales, mine shafts, all of those sort of things. But we also do sell investment properties where there's a tenant in, because a lot of our buyers are investors.
Right.
But we also sell for Mr. and Mrs. Smith with the two cats and the dog, to Mr. and Mrs. Smith with the two cats and the dog.
Yeah.
So it's a complete cross-section now. Nothing is taboo from auctions.
Right.
And the last resort feeling that people still have out there isn't necessarily the case.
Yeah, and I suppose it's having the right agent like yourselves to guide you as well, because people may not know about auctions, or maybe they're a bit nervous about putting their property to an auction, and it's that not knowing that people then go, oh, well, I might not do that then. So it's having the right agent to guide you to say, well, actually, your property is perfect to go to auction, and going from there.
Absolutely, and I think you've got people who are desperate to sell their property for one reason or another.
Yeah.
It could be a deceased estate, it could be financial difficulties, and they don't think about auction as an option.
Yeah.
It's expensive, people assume. There are ways that we can do no sale, no fee for them. So
Okay.
if they do need to sell their property quickly, and I'm talking from start to finish, less than 8 weeks.
Yes.
And the prices we're achieving, as you've seen on the footage, are as good as, if not better than, private treaty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So auctions really should be given due consideration when you're looking to dispose of your house.
And especially when I had a friend, her house was on the market for 3 years, and it was such a painful process for her, and that's maybe an option, had she have known a bit more about it, then...
Absolutely. It has to be right, it has to be the right property and the right circumstances, but we will go and say, yes, this is an ideal opportunity for auction,
Yeah.
or no, you're better off going down the standard private treaty route.
And we talk about private treaty, so there's different ways, obviously, of selling your home. Guide us through a little bit on the different options.
There are probably 4 or 5 types of ways of selling a house. Private treaty is the common estate agent board in the garden.
Yeah.
There is auction, which is a standard auction, traditional auction, where the hammer goes down and you complete in 28 days. There's a modern method of auction, which
Yeah.
is a subject to contract auction.
Okay.
It's good, but not as good as a proper auction.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 methods are very rarely used these days: formal tender and informal tender. Formal tender is that the buyer or prospective buyer puts in an offer in writing with a
Yeah.
banker's draft with all the things they need, and when they open the envelope, that is a legally binding contract.
Right.
An informal tender, you make an offer, and then if your offer is accepted when the bids are opened, you go through a subject to contract route, and then the solicitors do their bit, and eventually you get to an exchange of contracts.
Oh, okay.
Not very often use those 2 methods,
Yeah.
often land, but auctions, traditional auctions, modern auctions, and private treaty are the 3 main ones now.
And do you find auctions are picking up now? More people are considering putting their homes to auction?
It's about 10% of all transactions in the UK now are auction based.
Yeah, and has that gone up and up over the years as people are more aware?
Yeah, I think it has.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, before we joined the auction house fraternity, we were doing 3 or 4 auctions a year with half a dozen to a dozen properties.
Yeah.
We're now doing 6 auctions a year with between 25 and 30 properties.
Yeah, isn't that brilliant? And you cover Birmingham and Black Country?
Birmingham, Black Country, yes, that's our core area. We do outside area if need be because there's no other auction house franchisee.
Yeah.
Which we've got one in Llandudrod Wells, can I say? And we've done Shrewsbury and Oswestry, but primarily it's Birmingham, Black Country. Warsaw's our home.
Yeah.
That's where we come from, and we've just spread out from there.
After the break, we'll be looking at how West Midlands house prices have supposedly hit an all-time high, plus talking about the new Star Trek Star elevator for your home that could replace stair lifts. So see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Now, a recent article from the Express and Star revealed that West Midlands house prices have hit an all-time high. It also says that across the Midlands, average house prices have now soared to £202,000. Chris, I was astonished when I read this article. £202,000?
Yeah, I'm a little bit astonished as well. I think the Office of National Statistics have done their homework, but the Land Registry are a little bit off the mark in terms of those figures.
And what figures have you got?
I think what they're saying about house prices getting back to where they were at the peak of 2007 is right, but the average price in England and Wales back then was 180,000. Not 200 and something, and the Midlands prices are averaging about 139 now.
That seems a bit more.
Compared to 140 just over at the peak of the market in 2007.
Yeah.
So the sentiment's correct,
right.
But the actual figures I think are a little bit distorted.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the market does seem to be recovering.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certainly more people out there looking. There was a little bit of a sort of lull pre-election, which is what we expect. But I think the stability of the new government going forward now has meant that people can plan a little bit better, and the market is definitely more buoyant now than it has been for a while.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that there's just a lack of stock, though? More houses are needed?
Without a shadow of a doubt. The Barker report on housing supply, which was commissioned a decade ago, said that we needed 250,000 new homes to be built in the UK year on year. God,
that's a lot, isn't it? I mean, when you keep seeing petrol stations going and more houses being built, there just doesn't seem to be so much land is needed.
The land is one thing. I mean, I think we managed 213,000 properties in 2007-8.
Okay, that's good, yeah.
Last year was 139. And this year's 140 something.
Why do you think it was 139?
Daft as it may sound, they ran out of bricks.
Did they really?
Yeah, they ran out of bricks, they ran out of bricklayers, because obviously since the recession in 2000, people haven't been recruiting, they haven't been training apprentices in bricklaying and plastering, and therefore there's a shortage of skilled workers to enable the build.
Has that knock-on effect, doesn't it?
The build to go forward. Planning constraints, which have been relaxed of late. I think there's 241 planning applications in over the last 12 months.
Right.
But not all 241 of those will go through to build this year.
Oh, okay.
So consequently, we're 9,000 short of where we need to be,
Yeah.
just on planning, let alone physically building.
Yeah, and building materials, they are more and more expensive, because when I looked at new homes only the other week, I was really surprised at how much they've actually gone up.
Yeah, I think not necessarily the cost of material has gone up. I think the cost of land, because a lot of the developers bought land at the peak of the market, so they're still having land banks of expensive land compared to what it can be bought at now. But you've also got a situation where the builders will only release so many units at a time, which obviously creates a pent-up demand, and therefore prices will get nudged up a little bit rather than downwards.
Yeah, definitely. So we do need more homes, don't we?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Now, we mentioned about this article. Now, this article is Beam Me Upstairs, Scotty, brilliant title, Star Trek Star elevator that could replace stair lifts in homes. It's a Cheshire-based company. It's created a lift that moves between the floors of a standard house. It's called Lifestyle Lift. Costs about £13,000 to £15,000, and it's powered by hydraulic mechanism. It's got a Star Trek, in fact, you'll see here, Star Trek look to it. I think it's hilarious. I mean, it's a great idea, I suppose, because stair lifts can be quite bulky. Bulky might not perhaps look aesthetically pleasing, so it kind of ticks those boxes. But what do you reckon on that then?
Oh, I think it has merits. 13,000 is quite an expensive commodity to purchase.
Yes, it is.
Stair lifts are expensive, but I don't think they're quite that much. But I think one of the things we've just been talking about, the lack of new build. We used to call them downsizers, which is people looking to move from a larger property down to something smaller that's more suitable. We call them right-sizers now. That's the
I think that's quite a good name, actually. It's more accurate, isn't it?
The industry buzz. But you've got people who are taking up a 4-bedroom home where they actually need a 2-bedroom home.
Yeah.
Bungalows are very seldom built by builders, by developers, because the land costs. So you do have people that are stuck, shall we say, in their old property. They've been there for a number of years, but cannot get up the stairs.
Quite a funky little invention, and it just pops up between the floors, and it's quite good in terms of size, because it's only it fits 2 people, nice and small, nice and compact, and you could pop that maybe in the corner, and it just goes between. Yeah, it doesn't go at lightning speed or anything when it's the Star Trek style. It goes nice and slowly, but yes, very interesting.
Yeah.
So now you guys are also doing, I heard, the 3 Peaks Challenge. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes.
You're working out?
Yeah. After an auction one evening, we were having a drink, and I'm 50 in a fortnight's time. And I wanted to do something to try and celebrate it. Yeah. And it was suggested that we do the 3 Peaks, which, for those who don't know, is trying to complete the climb of Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in England, and Snowdon in Wales, the 3 highest peaks in the 3 countries, in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
So there's 4 of us, 3 auction house directors and a friend of ours, Rob Key, are aiming to take the challenge on at the end of the month.
Yes, have you been working up to it?
We've been out, we've done Scafell Pike as a practice, we're doing Snowdon this weekend.
Great. We've
done a lot of other practice walks, Penny Fan in the Brecons, we did Cadder Berwyn last weekend. So yeah, I've lost about 2 stone since Christmas in training, and we're looking forward to it. We're doing it for Macmillan. Can I say that?
Fantastic, absolutely, yeah, very worthy cause.
We're currently up to raising about £1,600.
Brilliant.
Our target's 2,000 if we can manage it. So
brilliant.
If anyone wants to sponsor us, there'll be buckets at the auction next week.
Yeah, I was going to say your next auction is next week, isn't it?
Next week, yes, absolutely.
So you're getting ready for that. So tell us about your next auction coming up.
It's our biggest catalogue to date. We've got 30 lots, some very interesting properties, ranging from, again, 1-bedroom flats up to 4-bedroom detached houses, cross-section. Cheapest is 40-odd thousand, most expensive 300,000. Interest has been very, very good. A lot of viewings on the properties. I did the viewing run on Saturday. I did 8 properties and showed 75 people around 8 properties.
Gosh, blimey, that's brilliant.
Which is a phenomenal amount of traffic. So we're looking forward to another like one you've shown earlier.
Yeah, definitely have to come along and
next Thursday.
Yeah, that's great. And that's what's brilliant is that when we had the pleasure of going to your last auction, there were houses from £40,000 upwards. So I think a lot of us think that you might not be able to get something, something like that now.
The houses in the 40,000 generally are a poor condition, and they're unmortgageable from a first-time buyer point of view. They're more for investors and
great
builders
investment.
to build, to buy and then do them up. But yeah, those properties do exist still. It's quite surprising.
And you do the whole spectrum, so it was interesting that you had the houses from 40,000 going right up, so you cover a real range of properties.
Yeah, and the most expensive we sold was £700,000, which is an old school, not far from where we're sitting here in Walsall, which has been converted into flats years ago. The cheapest I think we sold, or the most interesting we had for sale was a burial plot.
Oh, really?
We had a burial plot in a cemetery in Sutton Coldfield, which was guided at
£1,000.
Somebody had bought it for somebody and they'd already got one.
Oh, really?
So it was quite an
interesting... The random things that you must get on your job, Chris.
Yeah, it was the interesting with that. We had a viewing, so we went to have a look at it, and I rang them to say, "Are you interested?" And the lady said, "I'm sorry, but my father didn't like the view." And I thought, well, he's not going to see much of it, is he?
Oh gosh!
But that was quite a funny one.
Yeah, and I bet you've got some really funny stories from auctions as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've had interesting ones where we've put a price on a property which we think is correct, but then you get two people that want it for one reason or another. And we had one guided at 120,000, and we sold it for 340. And
Wow.
the two people just would not stop. They were just fighting for it, and it transpired one lived one side and one lived the other.
Oh, right.
So that was an interesting one, and others where we've put them on the market by private treaty, not sold them.
Yeah.
And we had a charity case. We advertised it at 90,000. Nothing happened. Had an offer of 60, and the charity said, "Well, we've had nothing else, Chris. Let's take it." And we said, "Look, no, let's put it to auction,"
Yeah.
which we'd recommend in the first place.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to do it. We put it into the auction, and we sold it 2 weeks later at the auction for 93. So £3,000 more than we've been advertising it for 9 months.
Crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's the beauty of the auction, I suppose.
Beauty of auction,
Yeah.
and it's the speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some fun.
Yeah, and I suppose you've got to be careful not to get too carried away. Maybe if it's the first time at the auction and it goes quick and it's that competitive streak that we all of a sudden seem to find from nowhere when we really want that property, it's being careful as well, isn't it?
It is. I mean, people ask me, what's the best piece of advice that
Yeah.
I can give when you come into an auction? And that is, have a price in mind, and when you get to the price, sit on your hands and don't look at me. Because it's my job to keep going at you to try and get you to pay more.
Yeah.
And that's my job on the night.
That's it.
So my advice is, when you get to your level, stop.
Yeah.
But that's where 250s come in.
Yeah.
Because an extra £250 doesn't sound like a lot of
Exactly,
money.
it doesn't, does it? Well, thank you very much. We're going to come and see your auction next week.
Great,
So
lovely.
all the
Look
best
forward-
with that. Good luck with the 3 Peaks Challenge as well.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Look forward to seeing you next week for more on Midlands at Home. Take care.